Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. This is Forensics Friday, our first Forensics Friday. We are two retired New York City police detectives, and if you like all things true crime related from that police detective's perspective, consider hitting the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload another video. Ed, how you feeling tonight?
I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm tired too. A lot of things. I worked a full day today, and I know you do your stuff. You're always going. But hey, tonight we're here. We while we were live last night, I think sometime during the day yesterday, the results came out from the medical examiner's office on Kiely Rodni. So tonight we're going to get into the the tox report, the medical examiner's findings, the pathologist. But before we get into all of that, folks, I want to just say a special thank you on behalf of Ed and I to all the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the folks who subscribe and leave positive comments and ask the hard questions. We really appreciate you. This is what makes us a great place. And Ed and I give thanks and praise to each and every one of you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you on behalf of Ed Wallace and Crime Time with DutyRon. Ed, Barbara says you look bright and fresh.
I don't know about the fresh part, but the bright is the lighting.
Yeah, you're bright and you're light, but you're not fresh. We've been going all day. Hey, listen, Ed, so there's so many questions. There's so many people. Listen, we're never going to have everybody on the same page in any case that we cover. We've learned this from early on. We're never going to be on the same page. Everyone's not going to agree on the end result here. But Ed, when you look at something like this, is there any do-overs? Are medical examiners and forensic pathologists and folks like this, I know that it's happened in the past where an accident has been reclassified to something different, but it doesn't happen often, Ed. I mean, people want to know.
Does it happen often? No, it doesn't happen often. But just as those cuppies are rare, the causes undetermined pending police investigation, those are rare incidences. But they're few and far between, but it does happen, that then some new piece of critical evidence comes forward and it makes the pathologist rethink cause and manner.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people talking in the Kiely Rodni Facebook groups, and I took a peek before we went live. There's so much conversation about this report, and it's 18 pages, and the reason it's 18 pages is it's not just from the medical examiner's office, right? We have the crime scene unit detectives that responded out there. We had the technicians from the medical examiner's office. I don't know exactly their titles. It says it in some of the reports. But Ed, you want to talk about why this thing is 18 freaking pages long?
Well, it's not any post-mortem examination that I'm used to reading from the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. It has a combination of the pathologist report. It has a combination of the deputy coroner who went out to the scene. It has information from the lead detective. It has the toxicology report. So there's a lot of information that's here, but I wouldn't consider it the post-mortem examination report. It has too many other outside reports embedded in it.
Right. So this is not something that we would normally see coming out of, like, say, a big city like New York City or LA. I was surprised when I got the report and it was 18 pages. I was like, what is this? But before we jump into it, Ed, I want to give the audience, first and foremost, thank you to the Facebook, the Crime Time with DutyRon Police and Crime chat group and the various Facebook groups that we are broadcasting live to. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're in 5 Facebook groups broadcasting live tonight, and we're also on Twitter. So if you're not following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and all of the social medias, consider first and foremost hitting the subscribe button here on YouTube and following us on all things social. So I definitely want to say hello to everybody that's looming out there on Facebook and saying hello to us. So thank you for that. Let's take a peek at this. This is Law and Crime Network, Jesse Weber. He runs a great show on Law and Crime. This came out just about an hour ago. Joseph Scott Morgan. He's the equivalent of Barbara Butcher, the male version, but not as cool as our friend Barbara. You know what I mean? So let's let's plug this up and let's listen to what he has to say. We'll see what Jesse asks him here. Ed, did you get a chance to listen to this or no?
No.
Okay, so you're hearing it first. I listened to it before we went live.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Jesse Weber from Law and Crime Sidebar with Joseph Scott Morgan.
Worries, buddy. Good to be with you.
Now, let's first start off. There hasn't been you haven't had a copy of the autopsy report, right? So we are kind of limited in what we can understand. But what authorities are saying is that the autopsy has revealed this to be accidental drowning. What was your reaction to that, and how do we know that?
Well, obviously there were findings at the autopsy that would have given them an indication that this young woman would have drowned. And you know, just so that we understand, one of the things we look for at autopsy, particularly when we find bodies that are submerged, are going to be the weight of the lungs. There's a standard weight dependent upon the person's size. And for her, she's roughly 16 years of age, slightly built. And there's an expectation she's going to fall within certain ranges. And that is the weight of her lungs. This is something that's long established. So when you begin to get up into those higher estimates, that is one indicator regarding weighted lungs, where the lungs are heavily congested. And you know, there's indication that she would have been in respiratory failure as a result of being in this aquatic environment. That's part of it. Now you can wind up drowning in any number of ways, and that doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're drowned that it's an accidental death. However, there was not any other indication on the part of the ME to give them pause to think that this is anything other than an accidental death. And so listeners understand, we in the medical legal community go in with the working assumption that every death, and I mean every death, I don't care how benign it might appear on the surface, every death is a homicide until proven otherwise, because you can't unring the bell, to use, one of those lawyer terms you guys like to use. You can't.
How often have we said that, Ed? How often have we spoke about exactly what he just said there?
Yeah, almost every case we talk about.
Yeah. And Barbara, Barbara Butcher, the retired chief of staff from the New York City Medical Examiner's Office, she comes on all the time with us. And every case that we've ever spoken with her in regards to, she always says, that's how you work it. He's right on the money here. And he's at a disadvantage because he has stated that he did not read the report. I before we went live, I sent him a message and I told him that I would gladly share that report with him. So I'm waiting to hear back from him, and I'd love to have him on as a guest. I think he would be a great supplement to when Barbara, like tonight, Barbara is in California on family matters. She's not even on business. She's on a family matter, but she did respond. I sent her this 18-page report, and I'm waiting for her to chime in. She may chime in at any moment. So I'm hoping that she'll call in from California. But let's listen to the rest of this. It's only a couple more minutes.
You can't unring it. You can't go back and get a do-over. So those lawyer surface, every death is a homicide until proven otherwise, because you can't unring the bell, to use one of those lawyer terms you guys like to use. You can't unring it. You can't go back and get a do-over. So they kind of tick the boxes relative to this, and that's what they came up with. I'm very, very curious to read the full autopsy report.
Let's get into this. So you said that there are not other outward signs to indicate foul play, that this was murder. I want to get into that because her body was bloated, it was livid, it was decomposing, so much so that it couldn't be identified due to the decomposition that was present on the face. Now, it's indicated that there were no signs of significant external or internal injuries. from a layperson's point of view, I'm thinking, well, if there is this level of decomposition and damage to the body, maybe there were injuries, but we just can't see it. Maybe she was harmed, but we can't see it. And am I totally off here?
No, absolutely not. And that's certainly something that we take into consideration. And you begin to kind of, when decomposition manifests, sometimes it can mask underlying injury, and you're right on target. We've been hanging out long enough together, obviously, Jesse. So that's part of it. And you have to be very careful. You're going to take, I'm not saying you're not careful in every single autopsy, but you have to take more care with a decomp autopsy, because things can have a tendency to be hidden from you. And in this case, they would have looked at, let me see if I can explain this in kind of kinder terms. The body, there will be a certain amount of discoloration with the body as a result of decomposition. You have to be able to delineate between the postmortem changes relative to the antemortem event, or what's called a perimortem event, which kind of means in the throes of death. So what you would be looking for is to kind of suss out exactly whether any focal areas of hemorrhage. Is there any sign that her body, as a result of some kind of external injury, was reacting through hemorrhage? That's one of the things that you look for. And then you have to marry that up with what you know about decomposition. And it takes a keen eye to kind of be able to make your way through this and kind of understand it. I found it interesting what little I know about the case is that she was obviously unbelted, because she was essentially found in the rear of the vehicle, one shoe on, one shoe off.
Let's just jump into that for a second if we can, because so two of the SUV's windows were either down or broken, which is curious. And as you said, she was found in the rear cargo compartment of the SUV with her right leg against the pillar of the back seat and resting near the headrest. So now I'm wondering, again, A, foul play, or B, is this somebody who was trying to escape?
Ron, put it on pause.
Yep. Go ahead,
Okay. Man. So this observation that's found in the report is by the deputy coroner at the scene, examining the position of our victim here after the car has been flipped and pulled out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the position that was in the water when the car was upside down, and there's no information about that. It doesn't. And in the death scene, the deputy coroner's death scene report makes no mention of them taking their own independent photographs. All they talk about is that there's a supplemental set of photographs and a report taken by the sheriff's office crime scene people. And I don't understand that, because the jurisdiction of that body, although it's the same agency, but it is the deputy coroner's job to take pictures of that body as they find the body.
I mean, with the car upside down on its roof, a diver should have went under the water and took photographs and video, just like AWP went down there, and what they showed us is probably a small snippet of what they have.
It's underwater crime scene investigations 101. Okay.
Can you talk about that? What they should have done under that water?
It's the same thing they do above ground. There's no difference. It's just that it's underwater now. Instead of using a standard digital SLR camera on dry land, now you have to take that camera and put it in a polycarbonate underwater housing, and you do your same forensic photography underwater.
Why do you think that was left out of this report, Ed? I mean, people want to know this. Why would they not have released this to make everybody just now they've just started a whole nother circus of speculation and conspiracy theories?
Well, I mean, the whole handling of the car and the way it was processed, the whole it wasn't treated as a crime scene. They didn't follow the forensic standards of the underwater recovery. Okay. Obviously they didn't take any documentation. They didn't do any secondary dives once the vehicle was removed, because they never went back in to collect all the things that fell out of the vehicle when they flipped it and broke the window. So, I mean, there's a lot of things in that I'm reading in this report, and I don't understand. The pathologist talks about the decomp of the body, and that couldn't identify the body by facial recognition. But yet in the report, it says he contradicts himself later and says that the detective identified the body at the autopsy.
Yeah.
Well, how'd they do that? They didn't use fingerprints because the pathologist report says there was a lot of extensive skin damage to the hands. Okay. There's no mention of DNA. There's no mention of dental records. In fact, there's a box on the report there that states that they don't know who her dentist is.
Yeah, it's unknown.
Yeah. So how was this detective able to make a facial ID? And facial ID is not considered a forensic identification. Okay. It's just not. You have to do it by either fingerprints, DNA, or dental records.
Right.
So it doesn't appear that was done here.
It's just amazing that when I read this thing, I read it over and over again. I think I read this thing 3 or 4 times over. And I just was scratching my head at the end of it because it left so many extra questions,
I don't see anything in the report about waters in the lung. I don't see anything in the report about water in the GI tract. I didn't see any of that.
And we're going to get into each page of this document. There might be some that we skip over because of sensitive information, but we're going to break it down for you here. So for those of you who are just tuning in, welcome to Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We're breaking down the Kiely Rodni autopsy report. And this report is coming in not just from the Nevada County Coroner's Office, it's coming in from the outside lab that they contracted to do the tox. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ed. It's coming from the crime scene responding detectives, the detective that positively identified her body at the morgue at the medical examiner's office, and he was on scene as well. So there's a lot of folks in this report, and I'm just going to put you full screen. I want to listen just to a little bit more of this. I know that you get
let her rip.
But I think that he gives a little bit of extra stuff that we're going to continue to talk about this. But I'd like to hear it from from a legal medical death investigator. And I know that you have a ton of knowledge. You worked with Barbara; she was your boss over at the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. So, heck, you've seen so many of these cases. It's probably a tremendous amount. So let's let this play, and then we'll circle back.
Yeah, and that gives you an indication of potential disorientation. One other
pillar of the back seat and resting near the headrest. So now I'm wondering, again, A, foul play, or B, is this somebody who was trying to escape?
Yeah, and that gives you an indication of potential disorientation. One other point we have to make here is that the vehicle was inverted. So the vehicle is essentially either almost completely on its top or kind of listing toward that way. There's that grainy screen capture that's floating around the internet right now that they took. You can see the plate and that sort of thing. And the thing is, the vehicle is kind of dependent on the left upper side, and it's kind of hanging in there. She's in 14 feet of water, Jesse. And so there would be disorientation. Remember, this occurred at night. So there's not even, and at 14 feet, you're not going to have a lot of light down in there anyway, depending upon what the bottom is like. Is it muddy, murky, that sort of thing? Sometimes you go on dives, you can't see your hand in front of your face, depending upon the environment you're on. This is not the Caribbean, all right?
Okay,
so
pause it again.
You're not going to be able to see real well.
It was 14 feet at the time of the recovery. It was about 2 to 3 feet higher, according to all reports, when she went in the water.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So the time from August 6th, now we know, right? She went in 12:33-ish to recovery August 21st. That's a considerable amount of time. So the water levels, due to drought conditions there, they were also battling
forest fires.
Yeah, this is quite ironic. They were battling forest fires because we know from Check It TV, the guy Juan, he said that when he called Placer and he called Nevada, they said, and Truckee Police Department, all of our personnel are busy on fires, which this comes right full circle back into what we now know is video from a fire cam that shows her at the ping time, that vehicle going into the water. Let's let this play. This is footage from Adventures with Purpose.
Can you imagine being, essentially diving or plunging in your vehicle into this cold water, which it was probably very cold. We're talking about in the area of Truckee,
Look at that,
California, inverted, and then it's dark outside. You don't know, you can't even see your bubbles to see where they're going, if they're going up and that sort of thing as air is escaping. And, there's kind of a concussive event that occurs too. And I'd be really interested to know what her brain looked like internally, if there was any kind of indication of blunt force impact that would have been consistent with a car accident. You see that a lot. So
Ed, you mentioned that with Barbara when we went live with this just a couple of nights ago. You mentioned that fact, and I know Barbara brought it up as well.
Yeah.
So,
and I recall reading in the report about, I don't recall him saying anything. He didn't seem to find, let's put it this way, any blunt force trauma.
No. And we're going to get into that. So for those of you that are here to hear us break down this report, we're going over just a little bit from Law and Crime from tonight. This video just posted up probably about an hour or so ago, maybe a little bit longer. So let's just take a listen. He's talking about blunt force trauma and the signs that could be evident if it was a car accident or if she hit the water at high rate of speed, et cetera, or was, there was any type of damage from the car flipping and then nose diving. And, don't forget, it might not have settled on the floor bed of the lake very calmly. It might have been a hard bash down there. And we don't know at what point she was unconscious. Was she unconscious before? Or did she get unconscious while going in? There's so many unknowns here. So, Anthony, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it, brother.
You've got a lot going on here. And of course, there's the toxicology report. What her brain looked like internally, if there was any kind of indication of blunt force impact that would have been consistent with a car accident. You see that a lot. So you've got a lot going on here. And of course, there's the toxicology report as well.
So the coroner's division of the Nevada County Sheriff's Office is the one that ruled this death an accident. They indicated, the investigators, that they're still going to evaluate any additional information related to this investigation. They're going to work with the family on that. Have you ever, and look, I'm not trying to fuel speculation here whatsoever, but given the curious circumstances of this, I have to ask you, and we have about a minute and a half left. Have you ever seen a situation where there could be, a sheriff's office comes out and said, this is the initial autopsy findings, it's an accident. And then later on, they look at it and say, we were wrong. We did a reevaluation. This was not an accident. This was something else. Or the family or someone else hires an independent autopsy and they determine it wasn't an accident. Given these kinds of circumstances, I guess the question I'm asking is this the end of the story truly, or is this just a part of it?
Well, it sounds like that the coroner's office has come to the conclusion that this is as it appears to them. In answer to your question, Jesse, yes, I have seen where they initially rule an accident, but generally it's not going to jump to something other as far as the manner of death other than undetermined, and that'll be like pending further investigation. I think probably the totality of the circumstances coupled with the toxicology report that indicated that she had THC on board. There's ethanol, which is essentially her alcohol content, which I think was 0.088, which is just over legal limit. But alcohol or ethanol is actually produced in the decomposition process. So it's kind of hard. And she had been down for a while. So it's kind of hard to kind of, separate those two. But we do know she had THC in her system. So was she impaired in her driving? I think that factored into it too as well.
All right, so that was great. He said that he didn't read the report, but he had quite a bit of information on it. So maybe he was prepped beforehand. Maybe he just looked at it quickly, Ed. I love that guy. I love Jesse Weber and Law and Crime Network. They do some great coverage. So it was good. What's your thoughts on this, Ed?
Well, there was one comment there. when he was asking about, hiring an independent pathologist and doing a second autopsy, well, that ship is sailed.
Yeah, she's
The
cremated.
body was released to the family, and they cremated her.
Yeah, I was
So,
surprised he didn't make mention of that.
yeah.
That to me was telltale that maybe he didn't have the full, it wasn't up to date on the full case. And you know what, the guy, he does a lot of stuff. He's got his own podcast. I think it's called Body Bags, and he does his own YouTube. So he's busy, doing a lot of things. But yeah, you're right. There's you can't. It's the same thing with Cassie Carley. We cringed when we talked about Cassie Carley the other night because they cremated her remains. And heck, for those of you who are listening, and God forbid, your loved one or anybody in your family falls victim to a crime, and Ed will concur with me on this wholeheartedly. At all costs, do not cremate the remains until definitively you have answers. I mean, that's it's the best I could say.
Really, again, here in New York City, we would not allow them to cremate the body until a cause and manner of death was made, especially if it's a copy. It's we probably wouldn't, because this is in the city of New York. All cremations have to have the approval of the medical examiner's office. So if you can't get the approval, you can't do the cremation. Okay, and so that's the way we get around that, because then you can intern the body, and then if need be, we can exhume the body and do further testing. And in this case, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And in the Carley case, we can't do it either.
No, and that's very unfortunate. And I asked Barbara straight out, and I think you and I spoke about this straight out. Hey, how much extra do they take? They talk about liver tissue. They talk about. They didn't talk about the fluids in the eyes, the vitreous fluids, right?
Right.
Could there be a possibility that they left some of the things that they took off of that report? Or why would they do that? I would think it would be full disclosure, no?
Yeah. I don't know that that's the full report. I mean, like I said, I've seen the forensic pathology report from the OCME, and it looks nothing like this. And it's an independent report. It doesn't get commingled with the death scene report. It doesn't get commingled with the crime scene report. Right. It's a standalone report. It's not all encompassing like this. I've never seen anything like this.
And nothing is redacted. Like a lot of these reports, you'll see redacted, but we don't have any criminal case. This is deemed an accident.
But it's still a minor.
Right. So everybody was speculating about that, Ed. Remember how many conversations were swirling on the side, and there was sidebars. People were correcting us and saying, well, she's a minor. They're not going to release it. It's up to the parents. But look, that didn't happen in this case.
And, and there's quite a lot of detail in terms of her condition.
Yeah.
And, I want to be sensitive to that. That's why I said, we're talking to Ron, I don't want to show those areas of the report that discuss in that detail about the condition of the body.
Right.
But again, so the condition of the body is such that from the report, you can't get fingerprints.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because of the damage, the damage done to the hands and the skin.
Right. Look at Dwayne Klein says here. It's not a full report. All in capital letters, by the way. A lot is unexplained. Thank you for that comment. We tend to agree with that, But the question here, Ed, is: do you feel that there'll be supplemental reports, or is this it? Is this what all we'll hear?
I mean, there's a lot here. I mean, if they just wanted to release a cause and manner, that's one thing. But they went well beyond releasing a cause and manner to go into the actual pathology findings of the examination of the body, of organ examination, of they went into how they made entry into the body. The incisions. They went into a lot of detail that's typically found in the full autopsy report. Right. But if all you wanted to do was say, hey, this is our cause and manner is accident drowning, okay, that's all they needed to say. They didn't have to produce the rest of this material that's in here.
Yeah, I agree.
To do that, especially if they're, they were going to hold off until November to have this press conference to talk about the case and release everything in its entirety, allegedly.
Yeah, Sheriff Moon said November 1st. We have it. We played it numerous times. I'm not going to whip it up. Let's let this play just for a minute.
In northern Nevada has ruled the death of Kiely Rodni was accidental. The 16-year-old vanished in August during a party near Lake Tahoe. After more than 2 weeks of searching, volunteer divers found her car with her body inside at a nearby reservoir. The coroner says the autopsy shows no evidence of foul play and that she died by drowning.
It is time now for a look at your Friday forecast.
So that's all they had on it. This is local stuff. I just wanted to play that because Law and Crime did a full piece on it. So it seems like the local news and some of the surrounding areas just thought that this was just like a blip on the radar. Like it was not so important as important it was to us to come live with this and the people who have been reporting on it and following closely. Let's go quickly to the chat and say hello to everybody. The Papa Smurf OG is here, Ed, from the Fire Department of the City of New York.
Okay.
I haven't seen the Papa Smurf in a while.
Yeah. I hope everything's been okay with you, sir.
Yes. I hope all is well. Lexi is in the building. Thank you for joining. And Dancing Queen says, all capital letters, when will we get car forensics? I'm going to rephrase that for her.
Well, from this report from the deputy coroner that was at the scene, the FBI took possession of the car and brought it to their facilities to work it up. And then they gave it over to the California Highway Patrol to conduct their accident investigation.
Yeah.
So what did the FBI do? And where's their report? It wasn't a supplement in here. And you would think the way they did this, that if they would have had it, they would have put it there because especially if it supports their conclusion of their cause and manner, that there's nothing here nefarious and that it is an accidental drowning.
Right. Yeah.
I'm still miffed by the identification. That just blows my mind. A visual identification that's what was made of a badly decomped body. No DNA, no fingerprints, no dental. I mean, maybe they did it and it's just missing and it wasn't a part of this, but he clearly states that the detective made the identification at the time of autopsy.
Yeah, I'm not getting it. It just, for me, it's mind blowing.
Uh-huh.
Where do you want to start with this? You want to start with page one? But first,
put it up.
First, I want to say thank you to the moderators. You guys are doing a great job tonight and always. Thank you to the new viewers. If you're new, just stumbling across, this is Crime Time with DutyRon. Ed Wallace and I are retired New York City police detectives. Ed is retired first grade detective, and that means the highest level of a detective in New York City Police Department. Not many people reach that rank within the detective's rank, and he was in the crime scene unit for 15 years. And the crime scene unit of the New York City Police Department responded to all homicides, all suspicious deaths in the city of New York, in the confines of the city of New York. And in 1991, we had 2,200 murders, and Ed was working at that time. Ed, were you in the crime scene unit at that time?
I was rocking and rolling. Yeah, I entered the crime scene unit in 1988.
Bad
mamma jamma. So, folks, I want to give you a story of why we don't use facial identification at autopsies. So we had two Italian tourist family on vacation in New York City, and several members of each of these families decided to take a helicopter tour of New York City. And while they were flying over the Hudson, there was a in-air crash between their tourist helicopter and a fixed-wing private airplane. And the helicopter and the plane crashed and sunk, and we had multiple fatalities. And the bodies were recovered by our divers in relatively quick fashion, honestly. And the bodies were brought back to the medical examiner's office. And two sets of parents, there was some fatalities amongst the parents, but parents made misidentification of their sons. that had died in the helicopter. You know, they identified each other's child as being theirs.
Oh,
Okay.
what year
And
was
that's,
that?
I don't know. Let me look it up.
No. So was it in the 90s or?
It was when I was at the medical examiner's office. It was between 2008 and 2014.
That is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And the only way we were able to correct the identification was because of Department of Homeland Security and Immigration. When they came into the United States, they were fingerprinted, and they had the fingerprints on file, and we got our hands on the fingerprints, and the fingerprints of the two boys were rolled at the ME's office, and the identification was made by the NYPD. That that corrected the misidentification of the two children.
Holy crap. Look at this, Ed. Here's Kate_displaced. She says, I remember that story. And she's got a photo of, I believe it looks like Kiely Rodni as her profile picture. So yeah, look at a lot of people are saying, wow, STEM can be. Says that was 2009, my brother. So yeah, STEM is he's a man of stats and figures. So thank you for that. They are in shock. That's why. Yeah, it could be. Listen, let's rock and roll. Let's get right into this because we've got a lot to unpack here, and we're at 36 minutes already. So let's go through this, Ed, and you're going to tell me, where what you want to see, what you don't want to see. Oops, we don't want that. Stop screen. There we go. All right. I believe this is page 1. Let me just get it full screen, Ed, so everybody can see it. Let us know in the chat real quick if this is good for you. Leslie P, thank you for the $10 super chat. She says SUV could turn over due to buoyancy. We heard that from Adventures with Purpose. Ed also mentioned it. I questioned that it did not indicate water in her lungs, so she did not gulp water rising to get air. As a physician, I ask, was this a pathologist who is not who's not forensic? It was a forensic pathologist, right, Ed?
Right, and not from their jurisdiction. It was from an outside jurisdiction.
Yeah. So let me just see if I can highlight that. Hold on a second. It's too far back. I'm sorry about that. But we appreciate it, Leslie. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for that question. I was able to still read it. And I do get behind on these things, but I do have them up at the top of my screen and I save them. Kathy, we got to you before it went away. Kathy Richardson says a $5 super chat. Have you watched Everyone Matters, the documentary? Yes. Ed and I have been, people have sent that to us like dozens and dozens of times. I watched it once through. I get it. It's a documentary about corruption there. That's not what this live stream is about right now. We're talking about the autopsy results for Kiely Rodni. Here on Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed, just so you know, for everybody that's here, we don't sway off and have a shitstorm live stream. In other words, if my title that Ed and I create is about Kiely Rodni's autopsy, we're not going to get into all of that stuff. But I thank you for the super chat. And I just want each and every one of you to know that that's what separates us from maybe some other broadcasts or channels that you might watch. We try to keep it topic related because then it just hijacks the whole thing. So let's put this up, Ed. I got it ready. Just let me know in the chat if you could see this good like this.
No, make it full screen. Yeah.
Oh, Ed just overrode the chat, by the way. Ed
No,
Wallace.
I'm doing it for the chat, not for us. Okay, we don't need to be there. Let them see the report if they haven't already seen it.
All right, so Ed, you take it over from here. I'm just going to be your guide to bring this thing down.
Okay, so it starts off with the pedigree information here, about the case, decedent's information and pedigree. Identification it clearly says remarks identified by or how identified detective during autopsy.
Yeah.
Again, that's not a valid forensic identification. Okay, never will be. Okay, never was. All right.
This is what Ed's talking about right here, guys.
All right. Okay. Right, and then there's a place of death. It talks about the creek. Keep going down.
What about the time? I know people are going to get caught up in this, and I don't want to make this a 3-hour live stream. It says date of death 8/21/22. If she in fact went in that water 8/6 at 00:33 hours, why are they putting on this report? And Ed, I'm asking this question knowing the answer, but I'm asking you for the audience. Why are they putting at 20:33 the time that they discovered her or removed her from that water and this date?
Well, 2033 would be 8:33.
Right.
They didn't recover the body at 8:33.
I'm saying that this potentially could be when they pulled that car out of the water was around that time.
Okay.
By the time they hooked it up and flipped it and pulled it out, this is the date, 8/21, and the first detective arrived onto the scene at, I think he said 1700 out, 1900 hours. So
I think this is Deputy Mackey, which is the deputy coroner. I think that's the time that they started.
Again, my question is why is the date of death and the time of death this, if in fact they determined that she went in that water 8/6?
Yeah, well, that should be the date and time of recovery, as opposed to date of death. I don't. That's not correct.
Yeah, see, it says date death and then time found. I get that, 2033, but later on in this report, they give it a date and time of death too. So, all right, so let's move on. I didn't want to just rile up the chat, but I think I just did.
Too late.
Discrepancies everywhere. Trudy Harp. All right, so this is more pedigree, right? Page 2.
Yeah, and I know I see there's a lot of discrepancy in the chat about the height and weight. So,
but again, we're not going to sit here for 3 hours and go over this. We want to talk about, some of the highlights of this. So here's more of her address, 8600, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, nothing is redacted.
Yeah, nothing. It's all out there. This is her complexion, her weight, 103 pounds, so forth. People getting caught up that they didn't put her driver's license number in there. She had a permit. She didn't have a driver's license. So she had a permit. And that was another sticking point that I brought up. I got hell for it, but like I said, she shouldn't have been out there with a car after darkness. When you have a permit, it's to and from school or work. Why does it only list the mom as the relative? She's probably the legal guardian. She probably has sole custody, the mom, or they just made it easy and just put one of the parents since they're not living together. They're divorced, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I know the chat's going to know more than me and Ed know when it comes to that.
Well, wasn't she living with the mom at the hotel?
Yes.
Okay.
So I do believe that's pretty simple. There's nothing. Nobody should be wasting time on that. Okay, so this page is the incident report number. Gives the case. It gives all the info, case type, coroner case. And now we're talking Jason Mackey. We believe that he is the coroner tech, right?
The death scene deputy death scene investigator.
Right, not a legal medical death investigator.
No,
just a deputy guy that goes out there. He's taxed with.
Barbara and I trained a lot of these folks from around the country that had this same exact title.
Okay.
That worked in the sheriff's office as a deputy sheriff death investigator.
All right, let's talk about this. This is what I'm saying. Time of death pronounced 2033. That's 8:33 hours on 8/21 by Deputy Jason Mackey.
Well, that's the time of death pronounced, because that's when they found her. It's not the time of her actual death. It's the time they made the pronouncement of death. You can't pronounce somebody dead if you don't have the body in your possession.
Right.
So
I'm asking these questions, as you know, Ed. It's for the chat. It's for the people who are watching this.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering it. So time of death when she was pronounced, that's when the death investigator, the tech from the medical examiner's office arrived on the scene and actually saw her body, because he goes into talking about that he waited till she was out and on the shore to make the to get the approval to do the visual, to place her into the body bag, so forth. Okay. Cause of death. This has got everybody going nuts. Ed, I know this from doing my detective work.
Well, that's because this is the death scene investigation. The cause of death is pending the autopsy. This report was
while he's there.
While he's there, as her body is still in the vehicle, as the vehicle is being pulled out of the lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, chat, just hold the questions until Ed and I go over this, and then we are going to take a question and answer period in the chat. So, hang around for questions and answers. We may even open up the phone lines. That might be exciting. We may have some folks call in, so hang around for that. Thank you, Joey Brooklyn, for keeping an eye on the chat. Alicia B. I'm hoping Dawn Marie and the whole crew is here. Remains identified pending forensic pathology report. Again, just for the folks who are just tuning in, this is the investigator, the legal death, the death investigator from the technician from the medical examiner's office. This is reporting as of the time he's there. So it's
the scene report.
Right. This is a report from his eyes as he responded to the scene. So it's a narrative of what he took, what actions he took officially. Marks and scars and tattoos, none observed. And we come to know that she had a tattoo, I believe, of the number 17 on her hip, I believe it was, or.
Yeah. Well, it appears that, he didn't manipulate any of her clothing or do any search underneath the clothing
right.
to look,
Like Barbara and her crew and the people from the medical examiner's office in Brooklyn North, they would come and they cut the clothing off carefully, look or pull up.
No, that would be EMS. Barbara wouldn't cut the clothing off.
Yeah, but I've actually been on the scene where the medical examiner's office comes and they want to do a thorough check to see if there's any gunshot wounds that were missed. And EMS didn't, in all of the cases, cut everything off. Medical examiners instructed EMS who was standing by to come and do this. Hey, I need to see, boom, I need to see everything fully. So sometimes that gets done on the scene. I mean, I know you know more than I do about it, but in my experience in Brooklyn North, I've seen that a few times, more than a few times.
If Barbara would have seen that, she would have smacked them.
Yeah. All right. So next of kin notification, Ed, it lists the mom, Lindsay Rodney Newman, and Daniel Rodney were contacted at the California Highway Patrol's office in Truckee. That's where I called over to, by the way, on 8/21 at 21:45 hours. And they were advised of the pending pathology report for confirmation of identity and the cause of death. Anything that I'm missing from this sticking point?
Well, now, our death investigators, they would have looked at the body more thoroughly. They would have done their own photographs right there at the scene, especially since they removed the body from the vehicle. They would have taken a core temperature, body temperature, even though she was underwater. They would have contacted the family. The death scene investigators would have contacted the family to ask about her medical conditions, any medications that she's taking, who the family physician is, who the dentist is, in order to obtain pertinent medical records and any pharmaceutical records to see if she was on any long-term medications and things of that nature. Okay. And I don't see any of this in this report.
Okay. All right. We got Sleuthy just sent me a message on Twitter, and she said the tattoos were it was by her rib, by underneath her breast on the rib cage, the 17.
Yeah, so he didn't go beyond the outside of the clothing.
But this is coming from Sleuthy, and she does her homework, and she said that's what they talked about. Her alleged boyfriend Jagger said that. That's where it was, and then in the autopsy it says it's on her hip. So I don't know. I don't know about that. Let's look at this super chat from Leslie P. She is in the medical field. She said, I'm curious why the time and date of death is by a deputy and not the physician.
It's by a deputy coroner. It's a deputy coroner's death investigator. So they apparently they do that there in New York City. Time time of death is usually done by the first EMS crew on scene, not the medical examiners and death investigator, not the medical legal death investigator from the OCME. So typically, it's the first emergency medical service personnel. In this case, there was no emergency medical service personnel because the body was found deceased in the vehicle. So the coroner, deputy coroner, was the one that made the time of death. But that's for the scene. That's not,
Right.
that's not the official time of death.
I hope that answered your question, Leslie, and thank you for the $10 super chat. We appreciate it. So let's continue on, Ed. There's so much here. This gives a narrative here, right?
It says, I was advised a female decedent was located within the cargo space of the vehicle. Kiely Rodni was reported to have been driving. I responded to the location to handle the coroner case. I arrived at the scene approximately 1900 hours, and FBI agents, FBI crime scene technicians, Placer County Sheriff's Office deputies, California Highway Patrol officers, Truckee Police Department officers, and detectives from Nevada County Sheriff's Office were all near a tow truck. I spoke to Detective Sonia, who advised me that law enforcement divers had hooked the tow truck's winch to a vehicle under the water and were assisting with recovering the vehicle. I waited until the vehicle was removed from the water, and I was given permission to begin my investigation. And then he talks about the body position as he notes the body position after the vehicle was on its wheels and rolled out of the lake. There was a white female decedent located in the rear cargo compartment of the silver 2013 Honda CRV, and it gives the license plate. The right leg of the decedent was against the pillar of the back seat and resting near the headrest. The remainder of the decedent was behind the seats and not visible from outside the vehicle. FBI agents and technicians donned tie-back suits and protective gear and entered into the vehicle. The body was removed under my supervision by the FBI agents and the FBI crime scene technicians. They're called evidence response team. The body was placed into a large black vinyl bag, visually inspected, and the bag was sealed. No items were removed from the decedent's person, and the remains were later transported by Truckee Tahoe Mortuary Directory to the Placer County morgue. Body condition. The body showed obvious signs of bloating, lividity, and decomposition. Now, there's a conflict in here because the medical examiner's reports no lividity, and he's saying there is lividity here. Okay, there was also, various decomp associated with the skin, and I don't want to get into that. Just keep going down, and due to the decomposition present on the face, no positive identification could be made due to the decomposition present on the face. Okay, that is, that's crucial, and it conflicts with what happened at the autopsy.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's in writing. There's no taking it back now.
Right.
Okay. Mortuary detective Sonia told me that the decedent was going to be transported directly to Placer County morgue and scheduled for examination on Tuesday. No mortuary photographs were taken by this investigator. Again, I don't know why that didn't occur, because usually you take your own independent photographs of the decedent. That's your job. You're in control of that body.
Right.
Okay, remains removed. Okay, got all of that. No items of property removed from the decedent. Any items taken from the scene will be noted in supplemental report by the investigator. I was told the silver 2013 CRV was going to be towed to the FBI by the FBI and taken to their facility in Sacramento for additional processing. I was advised the vehicle will then be returned to Truckee, California Highway Patrol Office for the vehicle accident investigation team to perform their investigation. Case disposition. The case is pending forensic pathologist findings for identification and cause of death. Forward to Chief Coroner Sergeant Clinkinbeard. End of report. For photographs of the scene and the decedent, refer to Detective Sonia's supplemental report.
Okay, that was page 2 of 2. Now, this is a different officer, Norden Damien. and this is a supplemental. This is a short one. And
So the narrative is on August 23rd, 2022, at approximately 10:20 hours, I received a phone call from Captain Sam Brown. Captain Brown told me the decedent in this case had been positively identified as Kiely Rodni. After I spoke to Captain Brown, I called the decedent's parents, Daniel Rodni and Lindsay Rodni Neiman, and offered to meet with Daniel and Lindsay, and they both told me to update them on the phone. I told Daniel and Lindsay that the decedent had been positively identified.
Yep. And so that's just his narrative of what he did there.
Again, how was this positive identification made? By facial recognition by a detective?
And this was on August 23rd, which is 2 days later.
Uh-huh.
So he's being directed by, we saw Captain Sarah Brown at the news conference.
Yeah.
He's the guy who was, Sheriff Moon told him, step up. He was pretty much the spokesperson. We saw him all the time. So he directed, at his direction, a captain's direction, he was directed to make notification.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, Captain Brown told me the decedent in the case number such and such, had been positively identified as Kiely Rodni. He's not being specific on how she was positively identified at 10:20 hours, August 23rd, 2022.
Nope. And usually we make these kind of notifications in person. We go out and track down the family and make those notifications in person, not over the phone.
It says it in our patrol guide. All death notifications must be done in person. This is Josephine, the female. I'm assuming not assuming.
On the above date and time, I attended the autopsy, and the above date is August 23rd, right, at 08:30 hours. So she then must have made the ID and then notified Captain Sam Brown, who then notified the other individual to go contact the family and say, yeah, it's your daughter, based upon this identification, facial identification.
Crazy mama, no, that's not true. If you're listening to us, please don't. Let's not get involved in trying to draw these conclusions. We're telling you, we're reading this report with you guys real time. It was this detective or whatever what's her rank? It doesn't even say. Oh, detective. Yeah. So Detective Josephine Strachan. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. She was the one who was present at the autopsy, and she collected all of her personal effects. She lists it here, jewelry and so forth. And the items were transported to the sheriff's property unit and booked. And that's it. That's the end of this. So
the only thing the captain did was tell the one deputy there to notify the family that a positive identification was made.
Right. And that's typically how it's the chain of command, so he's in charge. He made the phone call. Ed and I have many times got phone calls from chiefs, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, and they direct us to make notification based on the information that they have.
And please don't get what we're saying wrong either. We're not saying that this isn't her. I'm just saying that that's not the proper forensic identification modality. A facial recognition or a facial identification is not considered an identification from where we come from.
Yeah, exactly. And we're just basing this conversation off of our professional experience and what we did professionally as New York City police detectives. So let's get the rest of this, because Ed, I'm sick of paying you overtime, Ed. I pay overtime all the time on every one of these lives.
Oh man, the slips are piling up. Okay. The report was for supplemental investigation. Okay, and this is Sergeant Clinkinbeard. The report was forwarded to the Coroner Division by Deputy Mackey with the Patrol Division on August 23rd. Placer County Forensic Pathologist. So Placer County Forensic Pathologist Dr. Gregory Reiber, MD or Reiber, performed an autopsy on the remains of Kiely. Positive identification of the decedent had been made by Detective Josephine Strachan during the autopsy.
There you go.
Detective Strachan was present during the autopsy and documented her observations and the method of identification in a supplemental report to the original missing persons report. I have recently reviewed the pathologist's final report of the autopsy, which lists the cause of death in this case as drowning. There were no other significant contributing conditions listed. I conferred with Detective Sonia, and he told me that there was no indication of foul play regarding criminal investigation into the death of Kiely. The manner of death in this case has been determined to be accidental. Case disposition closed, accident. Coroner, okay, and whose report is this?
This is
Sergeant, yeah, the sergeant.
Jason Clinkinbeard.
Okay,
What a name.
all right.
All right,
And-
so let's now. Okay, so now we are this next page, folks, and it says confidential, but this is they made it public because we were able to request these records through channels, and people were able to get this. If you were a regular civilian, plenty of people have this. It's out there. There's nothing redacted. This is the labs, right, Ed? So they contracted this out to a company, NMS Labs. Do not call these people. Do not, get on the phone with them. I'm begging you guys, don't do stupid things like that. This is just a contracted lab that the coroner's office contracted out, and they Ed, you could take it from here. What did they send to these folks to do this tox report?
Well, okay, so the report is issued on September 30th. Scroll down. It appears that all they sent were liver samples, no blood, no brain, and no vitreous fluids, and so forth. So it says here, it talks about the analytes, ethanol, nicotine, caffeine, cotinine, and delta 9 carboxy THC. All right, so again, you have your readings on ethanol at 88 milligrams per 100 gram, and they're all coming from the same source, liver tissue samples. Okay. And so
we heard Joseph Scott Morgan talk about the ethanol and how that could be elevated because of decomposition.
Decomposition, right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these levels are not going to be accurate, including this ethanol, which is the alcohol levels, right?
More specifically, the ethanol.
Right.
The others are what they are. Okay.
They don't get diluted in time with decomp in the body, sitting for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Nicotine and THC.
And 2 weeks ago, go by, and I don't know.
But you're not. Her metabolism stopped.
Right.
Okay, your metabolism is still going. So, anyhow, okay, let's continue down.
I wish it would go quicker.
Test not performed. Part of all the requested testing was unable to be performed. Part or all of the requested testing was unable to be reformed. Referred to analysis summary and reporting limits section details.
What do you think that means there, Ed?
Well, let's go down and find that analysis summary and reporting limits. Okay, specimens received, the white cap containing 58 grams on August 23rd at 8:30, liver tissue samples.
That was during the autopsy.
But it says specimen received. So collection date was the August 23rd during the autopsy. Okay, now let's see the date of receiving. I want to see that because, folks, we just waited 6 months.
8/26.
So they got it 3 days later because, you're sending it from California to Pennsylvania. And they go back to the top of the date that they of the report. And that's September 30th. So we just waited 6 months in Alabama for tox, and far less time here.
Yeah.
To get the
Alabama has to get their together.
Tox back.
I mean, 6 months there's nothing, there's no reason why. And my good friend would say, hey, is it reasonable that 6 months you have to wait to get a tox report? And this is what she would say.
Oh, hell no.
Okay. But yes, there are reports that in here about her eyes being damaged. Let's scroll down.
Okay.
Keep going. Okay. Analysis and comments, detailed findings. So it breaks down. It breaks down what was presumptive positive and what was confirmed.
All right, can you talk about that? Presumptive
Okay.
positive and what's confirmed for the people
Yeah.
who might not know?
So the ethanol was positive, and they did a headspace gas chromatography. The nicotine
Gas chromatography.
gas chromatography. Well, it's a way to separate chemicals into individual chemicals. So if you had a compound of chemicals, it would separate them as it went through a column based upon how it was packed and so forth.
Okay.
So next one is a nicotine, and they're calling this presumptive positive, and it's all coming from the liver samples, and they did a gas chromatography mass spectrometry. So what happens here is the gas chromatography separates the chemicals, and then as they're separated, they individually enter into the mass spectrometer, who does where the identification is done. Caffeine, presumptive positive. Okay, again, they use gas chromatography mass spectrometry. I don't understand the presumptive if they're using this technology. Let's see if they clarify that a little later.
What does this mean? What is this? I'm not saying it right. What
That's
is
a byproduct of nicotine.
Okay.
Yeah, when it metabolizes. Okay, again, it's considered presumptive, and but it's the two takeaways here are the THC positive and the confirmed ethanol. Okay.
Yeah, these two.
So the others are, caffeine you can get in a soda or coffee, tea, or any number of things. Nicotine from smoking, and the byproduct of nicotine there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go reference comments. Other than the above findings, examination specimens submitted did not reveal any positive findings of toxicology significance by procedures outlined accompanying the analysis summary. Reference comments. Okay, tissue sample. Yeah, I'm just surprised. It's just all liver samples, no blood, no brain tissue, no lung tissue.
They cut corners with this, or did they feel that it wasn't necessary to go with?
I don't know. I don't know what how the pathologist, maybe the body and the organs were so bad.
Well, just so you know, for the audience, for those of you who are tuning in, we're going to have to do a part 2 to this with Barbara Butcher. Unfortunately, we're going to have to get her on to talk about these, especially this tox report. This is very important that we know why, and if this is part of protocol. Is this what should or shouldn't have been done in this case? So I don't know, because I'm not an expert. You know a lot more about this than I do, but she knows a lot more about it than all of us put together. So let's get this back up on the screen and get rocking and rolling here. Hold on, full screen.
Okay.
So,
due to the nature of the specimen, some analysis may not be detected by GC mass spec qualitative analysis. Okay, tissue specimen required homogenization. Okay, homogenization, they need to mix it. NMS labs generated homogenized tissue sample. Okay. Unless alternate arrangements are made by you, the remainder of the submitted specimens will be discarded 1 year from the date of this report, and generated data will be discarded 5 years from the date of the analysis. Okay.
Huh.
So they're holding on to some samples, which is good. So
we can safely say that she had THC, which, smoking pot. Lots of teenagers do that, and alcohol in her system.
Right, and we don't know how much of the alcohol was from decomp or how much was from consuming alcohol. We just can't say. Okay, let's move on.
All right, wait. Pocket Change XD, the wife of a minor, sends in $50, Ed, and says, "Keep going. Pay Ed the overtime. Thank you both for giving us factual information and having no drama." Well, thank you. Thank you. I know, Ed, you appreciate that.
I do appreciate that. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Let's do this. Thank you for that super chat. Oy vey. Where are we? Next page. Analysis and summary.
So this is she's a PhD, and she's a fellow at the American Board of Forensic Toxicology. So she's got great credentials here. Analysis and summary.
Brianna.
Yeah, Peterson. All the following tests were performed for the case. For each test, the compounds listed were included in the scope. The reporting limit listed for each compound represents the lowest concentration of the compound that will be reported as being positive. If the compound is listed as none detected, it is not present above the reporting limit. Please refer to the positive findings section of the report for those compounds that will be identified as being present. Okay, good, fine.
And then it says test such and such.
Carbon
confirmation, qualitative, tissue liver. And I'm going to ask you this before we move on, and I'll ask this to you on screen and off screen because I think it's important. I've seen people say and make, and this is out in the fake book land and to Twitter and so forth. They said, "Oh, this shows that she's a drug addict. That she's, is it fair to come up with the assumption we have possible alcohol and THC in her system, and maybe some other compounds or components, because we're not done with this yet?" I mean, that's not. I don't feel that's a fair statement.
No, I don't think so either. What are you making that judgment on?
I'm seeing people talk about that. Like,
no, I'm saying the persons that are saying this. What are they making that judgment on? Yeah,
after looking at this.
Yeah, that's not a fair statement to make.
Okay. I wanted to get your opinion on it.
No, not at all. Okay.
All right. So this is a continuation of it.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that. Analysis by high performance liquid chromatography.
Liquid chromatography and tandem mass spectrometry. Yeah.
What is that?
So it's another way of separating the chemicals and then having the mass spec run it through there twice to identify these materials here, these analytes, and then it's giving you how much they found in the concentrations.
Yeah. So I mean, we agree with all this stuff. Ed and I spoke about this before we went live. Marijuana is legal in California. So okay. Anything of noteworthy here, or is this redundant, Ed?
Well, analysis by gas chromatography. The one test there, the cocaine and metabolites are confirmed in the liver in the tissue sample there from the liver.
Right. So we have THC, we have potential possible alcohol, because we have to also go by statements that were taken in this missing persons report. There was friends of hers. I don't want to start mentioning names because it gets people crazy. But one friend of hers in particular said that she was drunk beyond driving capable. So we have THC, alcohol, and now cocaine. Correct?
That's what it says, confirmation.
Yeah. And then now what do we got here? Analysis by gas. Okay, you just said that.
Yeah. DC mass spec, yeah.
What are these two items? Cocaine and... Is this another byproduct of cocaine?
Yeah, they're the metabolites that we were talking about earlier.
Gotcha. All right. Just trying to cover all grounds here. Acetone, ethanol, ethanol. Should I be highlighting anything here? Or
no, just, and then it just talks about the analysis. Analysis by gas chromatography, mass spectrometry for the following is general list of analyte classes included in the gas chromatography screen. The detection of any specific analyte is concentration dependent. Not all analytes included in each specified class are included. Some specific analytes outside of these classes are also included. For a detailed list of all the analytes and reporting limits included in the screen, please contact NIMS Lab.
Right.
Okay.
Ed, I have this highlighted here because this is concerning as well. Oxycodone, oxymorphone.
So no, they're looking here amphetamines. They're looking for your opioids, and depressants.
Is this showing that there's presence of these items?
No, we've already talked about some of these. Yeah. Well, these are analysis. And go back. Stop.
What
All right.
did
I want to. Okay,
Back up.
analysis right there. Stop. Analysis by enzyme-linked aminosorbent assay 4. Okay, and those were the tests, and they're talking about the reporting limits here. So if there's something above those limits, it'll get reported. If there's something below those limits, it doesn't get reported. So let's move down here. I want to see what else they were looking for. They were looking for stimulants. They were looking for antivirals, antipsychotics, muscle relaxants, and stimulants. So I guess this was the battery of other items they were looking for.
And this would explain why I read some of the crazy speculation that she was using more than just marijuana and so forth. This explains why I saw some of the wild speculation calling her a lot of different things, which we won't do here. So, all right.
Those are the reporting limits. It doesn't. I'm not reading that it's in there.
Analysis summary and reporting limits. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Page 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Keep going. Okay. Yep.
Yep. We read this. Let's go along. All right. So this is the official record from Sheriff Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Oh, okay. All right.
She highlights drowning, cause of death.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the specimens taken, tox, stock tissue. What does stock tissue mean, Ed?
I don't know what they're referring to the liver sample as being a stock tissue. But there's just something that like is
here. Brain looked like it was checked off, but it looks like there is a.
I don't know if it's just a bad scan or a bad copy, but yeah, it looks like there's something that was there. Now, usually in autopsy, you take a brain sample, and regardless of the condition of the brain, you take a brain sample.
Let us know what you think in the chat and down below in the comment section. Is this brain box checked off and then whited out? I'm just curious to see what folks think. I'm going to make it bigger so you could really see it good.
Looks like something was there and then it was changed. Here in the medical examiner's office, they would, collect the brains and have, we had one expert that would just deal with the brains and take samples from the brains and test it.
Okay. So some people at ATS are saying white out. That's what it looked like to me initially. Whiteout.
Maybe a digital whiteout. Yeah. Does anybody still use whiteout?
Yeah, it's someone says it looks smudged. Looks like whiteout to me. Papa Smurf. All right, so Gregory Reber is the forensic pathologist on this report.
Okay.
And Shannon Moon is the sheriff, coroner, and administrator. So this is where it gets a little detailed. So I don't think we should be.
No, I think we end it there.
Yeah, let's just end it there. All right, let's get Sleuthy on. I think she wants to come on and ask some questions. Let's put me and you back on. Sleuthy, if you're still awake, she might have fell asleep on us. Let us know in the chat. Let's look at the chat here, folks. What do you guys think? I mean, listen, we gave you our professional opinions on this report, and this report continues to go into details about her clothing and about her private areas, and we don't need to go into all of that. That stuff here is not relevant to, I believe, cause and manner. I don't think that it's necessary to speak about these private things and graphic things. What Ed and I just went over, I think, is the most comprehensive parts of this report. I think it's the most important parts of it. And others might beg to differ with us in that, you know, the clothing is important. It talks about a spaghetti strap, black French cut bodysuit that we saw a woman on the internet. And it was on Twitter. And I'm going to question Sleuthy about this. There was a woman that was communicating with them and saying that she found this bodysuit on the side of the road.
You know, yeah, I remember that. Yes,
Right?
it was a similar bodysuit, right? But
nobody wanted to come and get it. She went to
Right.
work for 30 minutes and was sick to her stomach. So
but she was wearing it. She was wearing her bodysuit.
Right.
So,
yes. Here's Steph saying we want Ed's professional opinion. Is any of this normal? Definitely.
Well, you know, I mean, there's a couple of things that we discussed in earlier episodes, like, you know, so at the time of her drowning, she was alive, right? And if that water is going down into her lungs, okay, there's going to be some electrolyte imbalances that's going to occur, and there's going to be water that's going to get into the circulatory system. And I don't see any mention of any of that in the report. Or any findings of water in the circulatory system that crossed over from the lungs and so forth. You know, there's other things that I would like Barbara to look at and give her opinion about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, you're looking at the chat. I got a couple of. I'm communicating with Mike King from Profiling Evil right now. So let me just send him a message, and you take over. Engaging with
Sleuthy's here, so I'm going to add her to the stream. Sleuthy, are you ready? All right, give me a thumbs up. All right, you got it. Hey, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Okay, so fire away. I know you got a lot of questions.
You did hit several of them, but I do have many more. So one of them is when you were talking about the independent photos that they take, should take.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the, I guess, consequence of not doing so? I mean, I know you can't go back and retake them, but apart from that, why would they typically take their own independent ones?
There's the crime scene unit, and then there's the death investigators, and we're two separate entities. And but given that this is a different system than we have here in New York, that the sheriff's running both. So, you know, maybe they decided, okay, let's not be redundant then. So let's just one set of photos taken by the crime scene investigator as opposed to the death investigator. I mean, again, that's just, I don't know their protocols and procedures, but I can see that, you know, a thought process.
But would that typically be something that you would see in this report once it came out?
The photographs itself or the report of the photos? Either or. Well, there should be photos in the report, particularly those are the autopsy photos. You typically in an autopsy report. Well, again, for an independent medical examiner's office or an independent coroner's office, they would have their own photos, okay, and they wouldn't be using typically law enforcement's photos. Yeah.
So,
hi, Sleuthy.
Hi. And generally, do they provide those and then redact and say, you know, due to whatever the law is that says they don't need to do that? Would they be provided just redacted if they existed?
With the photographs?
Photographs, anything really. I'm basically going off of what I do for work, which is not this, but it is in the medical field. And basically, if we don't write it and we don't document it, it's like it never even happened. Yeah. Yes.
You know, there has to be a report of the photos. There has to be a photo log of what photos were taken and a description of what the photos images are. So that has to be found somewhere in a report.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you read the report?
I read this entire 18-page document.
Okay. So is something that you've ever seen in an investigation that is similar to what this is in terms of such a violent recovery and just being in an accident itself? Is it abnormal for a body to have no signs of trauma of that at all?
Well, you're talking
No
antemortem
bruises,
versus
scratches
postmortem. Okay.
at all.
Right. And you have the various decomp here, and it's been underwater for two weeks, say. A lot of that, as was stated in the previous show that we aired, shows a lot of that decomp could mask a lot of potential injuries, especially of the blunt force trauma areas. Kind of hard to mask, a knife wound, a gunshot wound, or anything like that. That would still be there, but given the bloating, given the skin slippage, given the amount of badly decomp, body parts here and so forth, it could mask some injuries. But usually when you do these autopsies, you go deep into the tissue, and so hopefully, the decomp didn't get all the way through. But I don't know. But it's not unheard of.
It felt very incomplete in terms of.
I think there's more to it.
You think that there are pages missing, or you?
I don't think this is the full autopsy report.
So you do think that there is more?
Yeah, I don't think this is the full autopsy report.
I'm telling you.
I hear somebody talking. Okay. No, this doesn't appear to me. This doesn't look like any full autopsy report that I've ever seen.
All right, so no problem. Listen, Ed, again, so you're basically saying that there may be more that could be added to this, or that they just withheld more of their findings?
I think that I don't think this is the full autopsy report. I think this is some kind of preliminary report, and there is a more detailed report out there with photos and everything.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, listen, we got our good friend Mike King from Profiling Evil. As soon as he gives me the thumbs up, he looks like he's all spiffied up. Okay, there he is. Joining us from an undisclosed location, Mike King from Profiling Evil. Mike.
Hey, fellas, how you doing?
Good, Mike. How you been?
I'm well. I'm actually in Dallas at the. I've been with the Super Chiefs over at Major City Chiefs meetings.
Okay.
And then tomorrow starts IACP, so we'll have 15,000 of our closest police chief friends around.
Yeah, I used to go to that conference every year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to encourage everyone that's watching to definitely go over to Profiling Evil. He's part of our suggested channel list. Ed and I love and respect the work that Mike does. He's a fellow brother in blue, as we refer to our fellow law enforcement professionals. Mike, you sent me that message, and I always glance down at my phone when I'm live, just in case there's some good tips or good things coming in. You were on tonight with Vinnie Politan from Court TV. What were you guys discussing?
Yeah, talking about Quentin Simone. I mean, that case is really upsetting a lot of people. I think what the police department did is really upsetting a lot of people, with the police chief coming out saying our suspect is Leilani, the mom,
right?
But we're not going to arrest her, and we think that the child's dead. And so there's so many missing pieces. But I think the thing that kind of spun me up a little bit tonight was the fact that the PD sent out a tweet and said, hey, we know it's a big case, but we're taking the weekend off and we'll probably start up on Monday.
Ed and I are going to be covering that case in the week coming up. We're going to start it on Monday, I believe, or Tuesday. But yeah, we have so many people inquiring on DutyRon.com about that case, 20 months old. And, here we are again with a police department that, from what you just said there, to me, that's unacceptable in my eyes. In the days that we were police officers, in the days that we served, you would be pouncing. She would be, this mom would be in that, in the box, as we call it. And we would be getting information out of her. And, you would not want to be taking a minute off. There's no time to take off.
Yeah, I agree with you. You sure wouldn't be taking time off. I mean, we would have been canceling family plans to be there. I suspect that everybody's really tired. They've been working since October 5th on this thing, but these are really tough cases. But you know, I just keep thinking that they got something in the quiver there for them to feel this comfortable. It troubles me when the chief says something like, "We have no idea where mom and the boyfriend are." You know, you'd hope that somehow they're tracking things there. But when you start looking at the timeline of this one, there starts to be some really suspicious things going on, and there's going to be a lot of splaining that has to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Mike. So I wanted to get some of your thoughts on Kiely Rodni. This autopsy, 18 pages. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. If you don't have it, I'll send it to you. But yeah, just some of your thoughts from the Profiling Evil family.
You know, I picked out because you know having gone through all the profiling training and everything, I always look at things from a behavioral perspective. I think you guys are dead on. I have been so fascinated tonight listening to you. I actually have a video that I'm posting up. I held it. I was going to do a live. I was so busy watching you guys, and now I'm old and I'm getting tired, so I'm going to just post it up and hope everybody will go over and watch it. But what I thought was really important, Ed, and I think you brought it out really clearly, was the fact that this thing looks like it's lacking a little bit of the bench on it. We don't really know a few things that we would expect to see in most autopsy reports. I wonder how much of that was done knowing that it was going to be publicly viewed and knowing what this true crime community has become. Some people don't have the throttle to hold back on some things that are pretty darn hard for families to hear about their loved ones. So maybe it's a little bit of judiciousness on their part to kind of hold back some things and keep some things away and give us enough to say, look, we really did do the work. We really believe it was an accidental drowning. And here's the forensics that say she drowned. That was, I think, a really important thing that came out of this thing, because it took away a lot of the ghost stories. And then I think they say, hey, we did the investigation and we don't see the foul play to suggest that it was anything but an accident. And I don't know, I'll just listen for a second. And then I had some behavioral thoughts on a couple things that came out in the autopsy that I thought I'd spin off you guys.
Shoot. Mike, just before you jump out into it seems to be some controversy in the chat here. We did not say cocaine was present. Cocaine is listed there, and it gives you the thresholds for identification. It says in the beginning of the toxicology what was confirmed. It's at the top of the toxicology. Everything else that's listed below with the stimulants and all the other is giving you the threshold limits to make an identification. And obviously that wasn't in here. If you look at the report, let me just quote this again.
Yeah, no problem, man. Listen, sometimes folks get caught up on some of this stuff, and Mike and I, you know this, we have some of the most dedicated cyber sleuths that are out there, right? And they look at this stuff, they overanalyze it, they get caught up on certain things. But we did, under no uncertain terms, talk about that, but we talked about what Ed just said. So
the positive findings are on page 1 of the toxicology report, page 1 of 4. Those are what was found. Okay. Yep. That's it. The rest are just the some of the analysis that was performed. Okay. And then it gives you reference materials, and then it talks about the thresholds for making identifications on the other types of narcotics.
Right.
Okay.
Ed and Mike, I think one of the really main sticking points on some of the things that these folks are looking at, and, you know, again, a lot of them don't have the experience that we have. They haven't been on crime scenes. They haven't been to the medical examiner's office. They haven't made notifications to families. But we talked about water in the lungs with Barbara, our legal medical death investigator, Barbara Butcher from the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. She went into that with us, and we talked about the potentials and the possibilities of water being in the lungs in different situations here. They did not mention any of that in this report, and that has some people really stuck. Ed, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and we heard too about, you know, they weigh the lungs, all right, and then they know what the normal weight of the lungs would be for someone of this age and stature and so forth, height and weight, the whole thing. But there was just no mention of it. And again, maybe this is part of the missing portions of the report, because again, there would be also water would transfer through the lungs into the circulatory systems. There would be electrolyte imbalances and things. Now, mind you, the body's underwater and for 14 plus days or whatever the case may be, and there's badly decomped, and so a lot of this is going to get impacted.
Yeah, Mike, any thoughts on that?
No, in fact, a friend of ours who is a physician, a friend of the three of us, and I think is maybe even listening right now to the show, has been texting me and emailing me and expressing a little bit of frustration over the quality of the autopsy report. And again, I think, I'm the guy that's always trying to level the playing field and say, pull the reins back and let's get a little more info before we make decisions. Because again, I wonder, I did it myself on cases where I protected information that I thought would be harmful for the family. They know the information, they've been told the information, but you don't want to publicly have it out there. I mean, as you guys know, these crime scenes and frankly autopsies are brutal experiences. We hit a point in our career where we're eating sandwiches during an autopsy, and we're so used to being in the ME's office watching an autopsy as part of our case, and we're trying to get a minute to eat a sandwich. I remember the first time I had a rookie with me and I was eating a sandwich and he was throwing up in the bucket. Yeah. And I thought, man, this is a real difference in, I guess, experience level.
I once watched an experienced seasoned homicide detective sergeant at a crime scene eat a chicken parmesan hero. So, again, I couldn't do it. I couldn't go into the ME's office when I would make my, positive ID in the morning after working in a 24. I'm not eating anything. I'm not even having a cup of coffee until I get home. So. I
remember two surly seasoned detectives trying to get this rookie uniformed cop who was safeguarding the crime scene, who was gagging because of the decomp smell to vomit. And I'm yelling at them, if this guy vomits in this crime scene, I'm going to make you guys eat it. And when we started examining the body, more decomp smell came out, and the two detectives hurled.
Yeah. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, the kid held, and the two surly detectives.
Hey, Charlotte, thank you for the super chat. She says, why did they not test for fentanyl when it's a known issue in America? It's a known issue not in America. It's a known issue in the world. It's a dangerous narcotic, and it's deadly. We are not, we're not medical examiner staffs, right? We're retired detectives. We're retired investigators. So we are going to have Barbara Butcher, the chief of staff, retired from the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. We're going to talk to her. I sent a message, Mike, to Joseph Scott Morgan before we went live because I complimented him on his appearance tonight on Law and Crime, the sidebar with, I think it was Jesse Weber. And I love the piece that he did there, and we played it in the beginning of the show. His knowledge, I know he's a friend of yours. He's on your channel sometimes. I've seen him on there. An invaluable source that can speak on this stuff. I hope you're going to have him on and talk to him about this, Mike.
I think Joe Scott has such an incredible way of being able to help guys like maybe you and me, Ron, not certainly Ed. He gets it, understand it at a basic level. And wow, what a compliment to any place that has him on. It just really is good. And I'm looking forward to when you bring the ME in to talk about this one. I didn't know what your thoughts were on the jewelry, but here's the criminal profiler in me. I wanted to just mention that as soon as I saw that too, it helped me finally put the nail in the coffin that there was not a robbery or some other type of crime involved with that, with the laptop being found, with other personal effects, with the jewelry being found. If this was anything predacious, I think that those items probably would have been collected long before she went in. And Ed, I was kind of wondering what your thoughts were on the fact that I wasn't too upset about the shoe, given the fact that that vehicle's going down nose first. I've always theorized that she was up in the air bubble and that she could have got her legs wrapped around those seat headrests and trying to kick her way through those kicking one shoe off didn't bother me at all. I know some people are spun up about that.
No, it doesn't bother me either. First of all, we don't even know what kind of shoes they are. I mean, they could be slip-ons. We don't know how, if they had laces or whatever the case may be. But yeah, if she's fighting to get to the back of the car where she thinks she can escape or she can find air or whatever the case may be, it wouldn't surprise me that, given the tight quarters going, along the roof and the seat and the headrest, that something like this occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we've been on here for an hour and 40 minutes. That's a world record for Crime Time with DutyRon. We try to keep it to about an hour. This has been a very informative live stream. I encourage everyone to go over and check out my good friend Mike King at Profiling Evil. He's, like I said, he's one of the few channels that I do suggest in my channel suggestion list. The information that you'll get from him is factual and accurate to the best of his knowledge and ability. And I highly recommend you guys go over there and subscribe to his channel. He's slowly catching up to us with subscribers. So let's get him over the hump. And
I don't think it'll ever happen.
Oh, stop it.
But it's better to be a number 2 because your neck doesn't hurt as bad looking over your shoulder.
Hey, I just looked up a resource that I have in autopsies, and the normal weight of the lungs for somebody of this age and height and weight is about 105 on one lung and 101 on the other lung. So it's really close to what they have currently listed in the report.
There you go. I'm laughing at this because this is the second $50 super chat that Pocket Change XD sent, the wife of a minor. She's gives another $50 extra overtime for the veterans.
We never asked her what kind of miner this was. Is this a diamond miner or a gold miner? I mean, it's not a coal miner.
We appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And guys and girls, if you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. There you go, Mike. Thank you. So you will be notified when we go live or upload another video. Subscribe and follow us on all things social media, all one word, DutyRon. And you can go over to DutyRon.com where you can get everything about the cases that we cover here in the present and in the past. You can go over, you could support the EquiSearch Midwest group that we are a part of. They're doing a great job on searching for the missing, and you can't go wrong there. Mike, what do you got? You're uploading something tonight, you said? Do you want everyone to
Yeah,
go?
thanks. Love you guys. Just keep up the good work. You're a staple for me when I'm looking for something to listen to, so keep it up. Yeah, I today, if you didn't catch it, I uploaded an early morning pre-investigative video for Adventures with Purpose on a case that they posted today. So the case on Shane Strong, really interesting case. Been doing a lot of little pre things for them, and I think we learned some valuable lessons with Kiely's case. Quite frankly, we all need to kind of stay in our swim lanes, and I don't know much about scuba, but I do know investigations, just like you guys, and it's just really valuable that we have different disciplines working together. And I love those guys and love what they do. Also, a few minutes after you guys are done, I'll post up a video because I'm not going to get in the way of all this cool stuff you do. So thanks. I love you. Have a good night. And I'll yell at the Super Chiefs tomorrow that I was on with a couple of old dusty cops tonight.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, I want to just say one thing. You know, what you said about staying in your lane is an important thing. You know, sometimes we try to do too much. These folks that go out and search for the missing, that do God's work, as I like to say it, sometimes you get caught up in a moment. You do things that are, like you said, outside of your lane, and it happens to the best of us. So listen, I love and respect these guys and everybody that's out there and doing stuff. Just get behind these people and support them, and just realize we're all human beings. Sometimes make mistakes. I make them all the time. You can go ask my wife. She'll tell you. So we do it. And Mike, I appreciate your support, your friendship, and I'm looking forward to watching your next upload.
Thanks. I think the next one is you guys come on my show. It was great to have you on a couple of nights ago, Ron. And to everybody out there, thanks. Those of you who are subscribers, thanks so much. Really appreciate you.
There you go. There's Mike King, Profiling Evil. Mike, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mike.
later.
See you soon. All right, there he goes. That's Mike King. I love that guy. He's a great guy. I can't wait to meet him one day.
Good man, good officer, good detective. You guys got to support his show, please. If you haven't already done so, go over there and subscribe.
Yeah, all 2,300 of you, go on over there and check him out. Listen, Ed, I'm tired. I got to go to bed. Final thoughts on this thing.
I think there's more to follow.
More coming.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think we heard the last of this thing. I feel like they rushed to get this out because November 1st is, correct me if I'm wrong, a good 2 weeks out, right? So the Sheriff Moon said that we would hear from her November 1st. And she was pretty straightforward with that. It wasn't like maybe around November 1st. She said, we're not releasing anything till November 1st. So something happened, whether it was the sleuths on the internet or pressure from the community or pressure from, from the family. They got this thing out there, and maybe we haven't heard the last of it. Ed, I appreciate you taking out almost 2 hours of your night on a Friday night. That's incredible. Our first Forensics Friday with Ed Wallace. You got anything? You see anything in the chat or anybody?
No, just somebody said that I backpedaled on something, but if I misspoke, I misspoke. I mean, I don't,
You're not backpedaling on anything. Stop paying attention to that nonsense.
Okay.
Ed Wallace, I appreciate you. I love you. I think you're doing a great job with all the things that you're bringing to our friends, our family, the Crime Time with DutyRon community. If you guys want to leave us comments and questions, leave it down below, because the best way to communicate with us is in the comment section after we're done with these live streams. So leaving a comment down in the comment section is instrumental in keeping the conversation going. I like to say that, keeping that conversation going. Let's send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the family of Kiely Rodni. They need us now more than ever to support them and, do what you can to be kind human beings. All right. And as I like to end these things, God bless the world. God bless the United States of America. And God bless each and every one of us here. Ed, I know you got something to say.
Well, I always say to you folks, stay safe, please. Watch, be prepared and watch your six.
Amen to that, brother. Good night from New York City. And, well, I know Ed's in New York as well. Well, I'm in Long Island, so that was kind of a flub up. But good night from Long Island, New York, and somewhere out there in the 5 boroughs, Ed is. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Ed.
Okay.
Peace, everybody.
Take care, folks.